Today on Real Pilates, we're going to talk about the spine. There are a lot of things about the spine you already know. You know that the spine is that center highway of the body. The spine gives you stability of the trunk, where all of your major organs are located. Your spine is also the stability of the head, where all the consciousness and awareness and the brain is located. The spine is also the stability of the arms and the legs that stick out so that we can get around and we can do things when we're getting around. So the spine is divided into 5 different regions, and each region has a name, and then all the little vertebrae are numbered from the top to the bottom. Every single vertebra is different from the one on top of it or below it, so that they're all tiny changes as you go down the spine. So the first ones at the top are called the cervicals, and those are from 1 to 7. So they're called C1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The next group is that thoracic mid upper body group, and that thoracic spine has another series, and they're numbered from 8 all the way down to 12. Thoracic T, and it goes down with all the numbers. Then you have your lumbar. You have 5 lumbar. Underneath the lumbar, you have your sacral, which has another 5. And then the coccyx tailbone, where they're fused, there are 3 or 4. So most people have 33, some have 32 vertebra in their spine. And in between, you know that there's discs. Okay, blah, 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 nothing that you don't know. Something important for you to remember is that all the nerves for the entire body run through and connect inside the spine that go to the brain. The nerves are a two-way highway. So your brain has to know where your shoulder, your toe is, your nose is at all times. So your brain is sending signals out to see where you are, and then those things are sending signals back, like the nose is going, oh, something smells funny. The fingers are going, oh, it's cold, it's hot. So there's a constant relay of information. All of those nerves are in the very center. There's a canal of the spine that when the bones all stack on top of each other, they form this canal. You need to have a balance within the spine, because everything within the universe is either hanging or it's stacked. So you may think in old-fashioned terms that the spine is the head is weighing down and it's pushing down on the shoulders, pushing down on the hips, pushing down. But that's not accurate, because within the spine, there are so many different muscles that pull in different directions. So there is a blend of hanging and there's a blend of stacked within the spine. And that balance of tension and compression within the spine changes minute to minute, movement to movement. And the body is constantly adjusting all those little muscles and ligaments so that the stacking of your spine protects the nerves in the center and also maintains rigidity and strength to protect all the organs, but a definite amount of flexibility so that you can rotate and get around and do things without creating injury. The spine is your fountain of youth. It's where all the energy comes from. It's a balance of nutritional, hormonal energies that all come together. Your physical energy is all running through that spine. The key to having spine health is being able to have spinal sequencing. That means that you bend at each vertebra and disc in the correct way, using the correct muscles so that you stimulate all that energy coming up and down that spine. Remember that your spine is inside a giant Ziploc bag called the dura, and it's filled with synovial fluid. So every time you move that spine, it literally pumps energy up into the brain. That's why sometimes when you're sitting around, it's like, yeah, you get lazy, and the less you do, the less you want to do. Sometimes just getting up and moving a little bit energizes you, and you say, okay, I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to clean out my closet, right? Or stuff like that. So movement energizes the body. Sequential movement of the spine, forward bending, back bending, side bending, rotating. All of those movements of the spine are important to keep the spine healthy. And as you know, we do all of those ranges all the time in Real Pilates class here. This is Pilates Master Nikki. Thank you for taking class with me today. Drink your water, hydrate, and I'll see you real soon for another layer of Real Pilates. Today in Real Pilates, we're going to continue to talk about the spine. So you may have heard people saying, the gym rats or exercise people, that this is for tricep, this is for bicep, this is for back, this is for glutes. And that isolated muscle theory is outdated, like cavemen painting on walls. It's just, that doesn't work like that. Real Pilates, the discoverer of Pilates, Joseph Pilates, discovered a new spatial movement series to trigger and condition a stability yet elasticity within the spine. So everything in the universe, it's either hanging. I want you to picture a lamp hanging. The cord comes down and there is the lamp. When the lamp hangs, the pulling downward of the lamp puts stress on the cable that pulls the cable inward, right? Have you ever pulled on something and you see it gets slimmer? So that's hanging. The other thing is compression, like stacking of bricks. So here's the first brick, and then you go down, and then here's the 10th brick. The 10th brick has all that pressure of all the bricks on top of it, plus gravity pushing downward. When you have a compression, that pushes the energy outward. So you have hanging, and then you have compression. Everything in the universe abides by these two things. One pulls the energy inward, the other pushes the energy outward. So I don't want to get too technical on you, but Real Pilates, taught by the original designer, is extremely mathematical and extremely technical. I have all those formulas in my head. I have all those angles in my head. And when I teach, I use all of that knowledge to be able to keep your spine healthy. So there's all different series of muscles that are running through the spine. Some muscles run up and down. Some muscles run across. Some muscles run diagonal this way, and the other ones run diagonal that way. And those are just the muscles within the actual spinal column, not including now the ribs that interdigit and come around the spine. Those have their own 3 layers of sheathing that also run in 3 different directions. So you can start to understand that if I tell you that just bending my elbow, I'm working bicep, that's like caveman stuff. That's just wrong. It is a combination of that bicep is leveraging or pushing off of a muscle group that I, as a teacher, will choose for this movement, for this schedule of this week, whether we're doing easy, hard, extreme, and moderate. And I'm going to talk more about that later this month. But I just want you to understand the importance of constantly varying movements. You can't just go to the gym and just pick up and just do this for biceps and think that you've done it all, because that makes the muscle biomechanically less intelligent. I'm being polite. Biomechanically, it makes the muscle stupid. And that's the God's honest truth. You need to do a variation of movements in a variation of lengths. So you can bend the elbow all the way up, all the way down. You can just do a half range. You can do a quarter at the top, quarter at the mid, quarter at the bottom, quarter at the bottom. You can do it all in one speed. You can do that same movement coming inward slow, and then releasing quick. You can do coming in quick, releasing slow. And I know it seems overcomplicated, and in fact, it is, to be able to vary the movements, the speed, the range, the combination, the sequence in which they're put together to quiet the muscles that are too dominant, to wake up the muscles that are more submissive. There's a series that you put together that will do that. And that's what we do here in Real Pilates. The important thing for you to remember is that muscles don't act alone. All muscles end up coming back to the spine, even if it's your toe, because you have innervations that run through the spine that go to that toe, and that toe is constantly talking back to the brain all day long. Your brain knows where your feet are, what temperature it is, if they're wet, if they're dry, if they're happy, if they're being squashed, if they're in sand, or if they're in someone's hand getting a massage. This is Pilates Master Nikki. Thank you for joining, and I'll see you in class. Today on Real Pilates, as we continue to talk about the spine, so we talked about how everything in the universe is either hanging or it's stacked, hanging like a lamp or stacked like bricks. When it's hanging, the cable that's being used to hang that lamp, the energy pulls that cable inward. When things are stacked on top of each other, one brick, the 10th brick, has all that weight of all the bricks plus gravity, and that compression puts outward energy on that structure. So everything in the universe is a blend of hanging and stacked. And all of that happens, that pressure, either inward pressure of the hanging or outward pressure of the stacked, happens at 90 degrees. What the hey? Don't get freaked out. I understand all these things, and I work with all of these things through the progressions that we do. So the spine is not as simple as the head is pushing on the shoulders, which are pushing on the abs, which are pushing on the hips. It doesn't work that way. So the spine is amazing. There's a whole bunch of series of different muscles that go through the spine. You have the spina erecta that help pull the spine up. You have the multifidus, and it weaves in and out of the spine that helps that spine side bend. You have the spinalis muscles that help that spine do rotation. And there are many more muscles and ligaments within the spine. Forces that are dispersed during movement are ideal for the spine. What does that mean? That means that you don't want all the pressure of one movement going to like all the lumbars, because the lumbars aren't designed to take all of that pressure. The spine is a series of curves. We talked about the cervical, the lumbar, the thoracic, the lumbar, and then the sacral and the coxal. Those are more fused bones. So that curve of the neck, if I were to push down on a piece of straight wood, all that energy pushes down and it creates compression outward, right? We're talking about stacking. The spine is a curve. The neck is a curve. So as I push down on the neck, pretend this is the curve of your neck. Instead of that energy going to the first, second, third, and pushing on the vertebra, it disperses evenly through all of them. So they all share the load. And within that curve of the neck, lumbar, or thoracic spine, there are different muscles that are pulling each vertebra and holding it into place so that all of the weight is not being pushed into one or two vertebrae. When you start to lose the natural series of curves for your spine from doing the same movement over and over and over and over and over and over again without variation, like sitting, like standing, like just doing the same exact workout routine all the time, that starts to make certain muscles too strong and dominant, and then other muscles more weak and submissive. And that arch of the neck gets flattened. Sometimes the neck will have a forward pitch in its straightness, or a back pitch, which gives you the double chin, which nobody wants. And it's not hereditary, by the way. If your mother had it and your father had it, it's postural. And if you have their posture, yes, you'll get it. But I will change that posture and soften that and eliminate that. All bets are on. So the spine is a series of compressions and things that are hanging. And it's important that the sequence of exercises are done in a way so that everything has a balance, because your spine has to be strong. We carry stuff, right? So you're loading stuff from the top of the spine as you're carrying your groceries, your purse, your chihuahua. And then you're getting the load as you walk or run. So imagine carrying something and running. So as your legs hit, it creates pressure from the bottom of the spine upward, and then the things that you're holding create pressure from the top downward. So you can see where I'm going with this. The design of the spine is fantastic. The original design is perfect. It's daily life starts to distort the sequence of movements that you were given at birth. And so that is where I come in with my Mr. Pilates and all the teachings to help you regain a balance of all the muscles and ligaments so that your spine is divine. This is Pilates Master Nikki, and I'll see you soon for another layer of real Pilates. Today on Real Pilates, we're going to talk about muscles in kind of general, and yes, the muscles of the spine, as we're talking about the spine this month. When a muscle or a structure, when a structure is pre-stressed in the correct way, that structure can bear more load without having damage or distorting its original continuity or shape. That's a big sentence. What the hell are you talking about? Girl, I'm just here to exercise. Okay, so listen. If you add a little stress in a series of movements that you're doing to the right muscles before you do the big exertion, then the sequence of muscles that are used for that movement are going to be done in the correct sequence, A, B, C, D, E. And that sequence ensures that that movement is done in a good way in all the joints, that it's done in a way that is integrating all the right ingredients for that movement so that there is no bad wear or tear on the cartilage, the ligament, the joint, and the tendons. So I'll give you an easy example. When we're doing class and I say, squeeze your abs first and then do this, do that, do this, and I'll give you 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'll do that a few times, and then you'll start to move like that. And then that is programmed into you. So for instance, if you engage your stomach first when we're doing the C curve and lifting your butt, you know, the one where you bend your knees, that little pre-stressing of that abdominal muscle makes the right space in the lumbar so that when you then engage the butt, the hamstrings, the inner thigh, and whatever other muscles we're using for that movement, now that lumbar is spaced. And then the movement of the strong muscles are going to move that lumbar with just that snivel of space that makes it move and glide smoothly without bad friction. It's called pre-stressing. And every series of movements, there's a new thing that is pre-stressed. It's going to be usually the abdominals, and I'll always tell you. And sometimes I will always tell you how to set up a movement, and I take time and I stop to do that. And it's important. You know, a lot of places go, oh, I want a class to flow. Well, you can have your class and it can flow right out the frickin' door for all I care. Because if you're moving and starting the sequence of movements in the wrong posture and the wrong position, you are negatively programming the sequence of muscle movement that it's not going to be A, B, C, D anymore. It's going to be R, Q, F, A. Who the hell knows what it's going to be? And over time, that repetitive Compensation of movement will create damage and you will set yourself up for injury. So it's super important that your muscles are sequenced in the right sequence. A lot of times, constant doing one thing, let's say you sit all day, it's your job. So you already start to have an erasing of your natural movement patterns. But every time you do a layer of Pilates, biomechanically, I sneak that in and your body is watching, paying attention, and it's absorbing the new programming. You may not notice it. You may not even know it. You'll just know that as you walk around, you're feeling better. And when you put on your clothes and people look at you, you're looking better. And that's my goal for you. My goal for you is to live well a long time. When you hit 280, I want you to just die at once and never suffer a day in your life. This is Pilates Master Nikki. Thank you for joining, and I'll see you soon for another layer of Real Pilates. Today on Real Pilates, we continue to discover things about the spine. So the spine forms a long canal, a long tunnel that runs from the top of the spine to the bottom of the spine. And that's by all of the disc and vertebrae being stacked on top of each other. In this long tunnel, all the nerviation for the body ends up meeting so that energy and signals go from the body to the brain and from the brain back to the body. So there's this constant two-way relay of this up and down of the body telling the brain where the hand is, where the knee is, and then the brain telling the hand and the knee what to do. There are a bunch of sensory nerves and sensory cells that carry out this responsibility. In the body, there are over 1 billion neurons and neuron cells that carry all this information. Within the spine, there are 43 pairs of neurosensor nerves that run up and down the spine. There's over 120 muscles in the spine and over 220 ligaments in the spine, right? It's like the grand central station of the body. That central nervous system starts at the base of the brain, where the spine attaches, the medullina, and it goes all the way down to the end, the sacroiliac joint, and that's what we call the end cone, or the coned medullary is where it all ends. So the body to brain connection is super important for coordinating movements and also reflexes. The neuron sensors that are in all the joints are constantly reporting back to the brain the tension or lack of tension that there is in the muscle and in the ligaments, so that the body knows exactly how to react. These reflex things that we do are split second, and they happen before you can think about them. That's why they're called reflexory movements and things that the spine transmit at lightning speed. It's important that all the little holes, right? Because every vertebra has the hole, the disc is in between, where the spinal cord is protected by the vertebrae so that they're safe, because nerves are delicate. If you don't have a proper alignment of your spine, as we know, the curves of the spine are different for every single person, like snowflakes. There is no prescribed degree that your neck arch should have, or your thoracic spine, or your lumbar spine, right? We know the circle is 360, half of a circle is 180, half of that, right, is 90, half of that is 45. And so you get these degrees, these ankles. So you're not supposed to have a 16 or a 12 degree arch in the neck. There is no prescription for that. It is a series of curves for that spine. And so no one can tell you exactly how much curve each spine should have. But there is the proper alignment for each spine, that the vertebrae and discs are sitting in the right position without contracting, herniating, impinging, rupturing, or slipping the disc, so that that canal that is formed by this stack of vertebra stays clear so that the nerves that run through them are not impinged, causing numbness, tingling, can even cause paralysis, God forbid, right? And inflammation and all of these other horrible things that we don't want. So it is super important to keep these vertebrae and discs aligned. How are we going to do that? You need to do that by balancing the activities that you do so that everything stays strong yet elasticized. So if there are over 120 muscles in the spine, I talked about this the other day about there's the muscles that go up on the outside of the spine and the inside of the spine, the longitudinal muscle, there's a multifidus, the spinalis, there's the spina recti, there's bunches of muscle names, and each muscle pulls at a different way to keep those discs stacked correctly. If you constantly do just one kind of strength exercise, you are going to bring that balance eventually out of whack. You need to do something that comprehensively keeps everything jiving right. And while I love to tout and I say I love Pilates, and I do, because as you may not know, Pilates saved me from a wheelchair 50 years ago. I was supposed to have surgery and I did not. I went to London instead and did Pilates. I could not even lift up my foot off the floor without excruciating pain. And I've never looked back. I've been doing Pilates ever since. Thank God, touch wood, no surgery. And I can throw 60 pounds up on my back like nothing off the floor. And I'm super active and super fit. And I do attribute that to Pilates, being able to balance and put my back into alignment again. I was very young and I was able to achieve it. And I'm pain-free. And I want you to stay out of pain and I want you to stay injury-free. Obviously, if you're not feeling good, you go to the doctor, you get diagnosed. We're not doctors. I'm not a doctor. But I can tell you, I am living proof at 70 years old. I can do anything you can do. Maybe not better, but I can just do anything that a young person like you can do. Bend, wash the dog, weed the garden, ride my bike up hills without a motor, and do all kinds of other crazy stuff we won't talk about in the bedroom. So, spinal alignment is critical for the health of your fountain of youth known as the spine. This is Pilates Master Nikki. Thank you for joining, and I'll see you real soon for another layer of Real Pilates. Today on Real Pilates, we're going to cover other kinds of back pain, what I like to call the fake back pain. And although the pain is real, the cause is not the spine and the low back per se. So number one on that list is kidney stones. The kidneys are the organs that are located closest to the spine, and that's why very often if you have a kidney stone, you may think that it is low back pain. You'll know you have a kidney stone sometimes because you'll have pain in urination. If you get an infection from those stones, you'll have fever and you can have nausea. If you don't hydrate enough, and I'm always say drink that water, and you have a buildup of the salts and the toxins that the kidneys are trying to flush out, they crystallize in the little canals there and stones form. And so that will give you the sensation of that low back pain. Another one on the list is pancreatitis. Pancreas is what helps regulate the blood sugar. It's used in digestion. And you will feel an upper ab pain. And sometimes that upper ab pain can radiate outwards and blend in, and you think that it's a back kind of pain. You're not really sure. And the pancreatitis can be short-term or long-term. It is curable in most cases. And you're going to have feeling of nausea. You will have fever, and you will have frequency in urination with the pancreatitis. Another kind of fake pain is colitis. Colitis is an inflammation of the large intestine. And that's, again, that upper to mid stomach that is inflamed. You'll have sharp stabbing pains in the abs. You can have weight loss and diarrhea. And these pains radiate backwards. And this is why I'm saying that sometimes if you have a back pain that's consistent, and it's there all the time, whether you're seated, standing, laying, you've tried to do some Pilates, you've tried physical therapy, and you're still having pain, you should go see an internist. Another one that's commonly mistaken for back pain is the appendicitis. And you will have that sharp pain, but sometimes the appendix can be blocked, sometimes it can be leaking, sometimes it can be ruptured, and then that's a lot more serious. But you will know, again, because you'll have the fever, you'll have the nausea, and you'll have that sharp pain, and it's that low stomach pain. Last are the fibroids and the endometriosis, which are two different things. Fibroids are masses that grow in the uterus, and they're not sure why they're formed, but a lot of time that heaviness and that pain radiates toward the back. And the endometriosis is that skin that grows out of the uterine lining. It can grow in the fallopian tubes and outside of the uterus. And again, it's super painful. So I want you to always assess when you have a back pain. Do I feel it in transition from sitting to standing? Do I feel it when I lift my knee? And make sure that your back pain, may you never have it, is really back pain. When in doubt, shout it out to the doctor and have a quick check. This is Pilates Master Nikki. Drink your water, take your vitamins, and I'll see you soon for another layer of real Pilates. So you may have heard about sciatica, and really, what is it? So the lowest part of the spine has nerves that run through it that control the low legs, the thighs, and the genitalia, obviously. The 5 lumbar have each has 5 nerves. Each is a pair that run down and through the pelvis. And there is a notch there that is called the sciatica notch. And it's a nerve that runs through in the butt muscle, and it goes down the side of the leg behind the knee, and it inserts or ends where the fibia is, the tibia fibia, down there, behind, past the knee there. And so sometimes you'll feel maybe just a sharp pain in that upper buttock. Sometimes you'll feel the pain just behind the outside of the back of the knee. Sciatica, usually you'll feel it most in transitions, sitting to standing, laying to sitting, laying to standing. So the nerve becomes compressed. And they clinically call it that the nerve becomes compressed or strangulated, and the nerve gets upset, rightly so, and inflames, and that sends that shocking pain that will keep you awake if you have sciatica. Sciatica is caused by many things. It can be caused by a little bone growth or a bone spur that now is pressing, right? And that needs to be attended to with a little precision cut that they do, and they just laser out that little bone. It's not a big surgery, yet you go to a doctor. Obviously, you don't do this at home with a pair of tweezers. And that's one cause. The most severe cause is that, and some diabetics will have a chronic pain that the doctor really has to assess and fix. But other than those two, the sciatica is usually cured with physical therapy that involves movements that contract one muscle against another to make the muscle stretch. Oh, yeah, Pilates. Pilates is the father of all rehab. So it's about training the muscle by contracting it to end up resting at a longer length, so it no longer squeezes and compresses that sciatical nerve. While you're doing your Pilates or your physical therapy and taking the pressure off that nerve, it's important to remember that the nerve is already swollen. So there are things you can do together to help that nerve unswell, uninflame, or get unpissed off, right? So the most obvious is the ice. The ice kind of dulls the nerve endings and gives you a soothing feeling. You should never ice for more than 20 minutes. The ice should never be directly on the skin. It needs to be wrapped, and so on and so forth. The compressed and irritated or pinched nerve can also respond to heat. Heat soothes the nerve and also stimulates the healing, and it also helps the muscle that is strangling that nerve relax. Anti-inflammatories are super effective, and there are many over-the-counter ones, but you may want to consult your doctor to make sure that it doesn't interfere with any other medications that you should be on. People recover from sciatica 99% of the time. The number one exercise, is the pelvic tilt. Oh, does that sound familiar? That squeeze the stomach and butt and bend at the belly button. The C curve. That is the number one sciatica exercise. And there's many ways of doing it. Feet wide if you're in sharp pain, and then you graduate to feet together. The number two exercise is bring the knees to the chest. How many times do we do that in class? Like a bajillion. Knee to chest is another great relief for the sciatica compression. You can do that laying down, you can do that seated, you can do that standing. It's important if you're sleeping and you have that sciatica that you sleep on your side with the pain side up, and a pillow between the knees really helps to keep compression off the sciatica notch and keep that healing mode to continue. This is Pilates Master Nikki. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon for another layer of Real Pilates. Today on Real Pilates, we're going to continue to talk about the spine, and we're going to talk about the innervation that the spine has in the upper part of the spine. So the upper part of the spine, the neck and the thoracic, has innervation as does the lower. But they separate the motor neurons from upper to lower just for designation reasons. There is a mixture in the neurons. Some neurons are sensors that they go out and they feel, they look, and they see what's going on. And other sensors are ones that help do movement. These sensors relay. So signals go from the brain to the neuron, and then from the neurons to the brain. This constant relay of upper neurons and lower neurons, motor neurons and sensor neurons, is super fast, and that communication channel has to remain open for you to be able to stay vibrant and to stay healthy. If you constantly do continuative, repetitive motions, certain parts of the neurons aren't getting stimulated enough, and other ones are getting overstimulated, and that can start to create a distortion, which then leads to a misrepresentation of what is happening away from the brain in the sensory. And then the brain gives an incorrect signal to the neurons on how to adjust the movement. And hence you set yourself up for injury. I'm breaking it down as easy as I can because it's a lot more complicated, and there's billions of neurons and there's different kinds besides the ones that I'm talking about. But I need you to understand all the stuff we take for granted, just waving the wrist and moving the fingers, doing both, doing just one, and doing the other. Being able to control that is something that is super skilled, and it's super that we should not take it for granted. So you want to keep all of these pathways from the different body parts through the nerves, through the sensors, to the brain, and vice versa. Sharp, excited, stimulated, responsive, fed, because excitement and movement keeps them activated and it keeps them gaining nutrition. So the way you do that is through large ranges of movements at different speeds and at different intensities. Super good for the knee joints to do various ranges of movement. Not always straighten all the way, bend all the way, straighten all the way, bend all the way, with the leg behind you, with the leg to the side, and then that's it. No, you've got to be able to bend that knee in all places, all around the place. And this is why the progressions in the Real Pilates rarely repeat. The sequence of exercises will never repeat. You may do the same movement, and it will be at a different angle, with a different speed, with a different load, in a different grouping of movements. Some movements quiet, dominant parts, and other movements bring up and give confidence to more submissive parts. And it's important that you have a balance. So my advice is to keep things varied. Even if you're doing Pilates, and I hope you're doing Pilates, and I hope you're doing my Pilates, it's important that you look for variation of movements in the things that you do. Are you going and you're doing always the same, just that same little jog? Try to do walk, warm up, do a couple of quicker sprints, go back to just slow running or maybe walking. Try running and hiking your knees up in front of you for 10 seconds, even at the same speed, not going crazy, and then continuing your run. And then toward the end of your run, really kicking your feet back as you run for 10 seconds so that you're varying. It's important to have a variation in everything except your partner. I'm choking. So even in the foods that we eat, we need to vary them so that we get a comprehensive grouping of nutrients, minerals, and vitamins. Movement is key to health for the body and brain. This is Pilates Master Nikki, and I'll see you soon for another layer of Real Pilates. Today in Real Pilates, we're going to talk about tendons. Later on, we're going to talk about the ligaments. A tendon connects the muscle to the bone. So you can kind of think of it that at the end, all the muscles blend and it forms a tendon. And that tendon is what crosses the joint, because all muscles cross joints. And that's what attaches to the bone, the tendon. The tendon is there to give stability to the joint, to give structure to the body, and to facilitate movement. That tendon has better blood supply than a ligament. So it, compared to a ligament, it will heal faster than a ligament injury, but yet it won't heal as fast as a muscle injury. It takes 2 to 3 months to heal a tendon. Some of you never ever hurt a tendon. Tendons are not supposed to be elastic. They're not supposed to be super flexible. They're there to stabilize that joint, right? So that you stop that arm from opening past there, because that elbow joint is not designed to go past there. We're going to get to the passive stretching. I have to take an ice cube to the head when I think of people stretching and how bad it is for you. So a tendon is inelastic. It is inflexible. It's white in color. 50% of sport injuries are from tendon injuries through blunt force trauma, or getting a bang on there. But yet, people that don't exercise are more susceptible to tendon injury than exercising people, because when you exercise, you stress the tendon, you force more energy into that tendon, you force more nutrition in and more toxins out, and that tendon will gain strength. A muscle will gain strength in weeks. A tendon will take months. So you need to train, and you need to train consistently. As you age, and we're all aging, which is a great thing, either that or we're dead. I'll take aging, thank you. As you age, your tendons do not lose density the way that your muscle can. Notice I say can. What the tendon does lose is hydration. And that dehydration of that tendon can cause it to be more brittle and more likely to be susceptible to injury. So hydration as you age, anything past 18 is aging. You need to be able to hydrate to maintain that tendon's elasticity. Exercises that keep tendons in particularly strong. Everyone talks about plyometrics. Plyometrics are a series of explosive exercises, but it's not the jumping per se. It is the controlling of the eccentric contraction, that makes the tendon strong. End of story. So, what the hell? Here is my bicep. When I pick up my spring, because I only do Pilates, and I pull on it, and the bicep muscle bunches up and makes the ball, that is a concentric contraction. That's not the one that makes the tendon strong. It's when I control the release of the spring that's called eccentric. That release is what makes tendon strong, and doing it at a slow speed. Hence that we do the different weeks and the different speeds. Super important to control the speed. And I always say that when you're working with the springs or in the mat, to never just release and always control the movement. That will keep your tendons strong, make your joints happy, and make you look smacking hot. This is Pilates Master Nikki, and I'll see you soon for another layer of real Pilates. Today on Real Pilates, we're going to talk about ligaments. So ligaments are different than tendons. Ligaments connect bone to bone. Ligaments, unlike tendons that are white, ligaments are more yellowish. A ligament has a certain amount of elasticity and flexibility. And yet, when a ligament is stretched past 6% of its mass, it can rupture, sprain, and have permanent damage. So a ligament is also used to stabilize the body structure. It helps facilitate movement. Your body has over 900 ligaments in it. Your nutrition plays a vital point in everything, but especially in the ligaments, because you want to keep generating that fibrinous collagen. Vitamin C, manganese, magnesium, potassium, all of these vitamins, minerals, are super important for keeping the collagenous fibroblast forming within the body, because your body's constantly replacing stuff, right? And then they complain when we buy shoes. I know, don't get me started. The foods that you need to eat are the obvious ones, the green leafy vegetables. The vitamin C is super important for the collagen assimilation and formation. So that's all the C things, the riboflavins, the lemons, the grapefruit, the navels, but even kiwi, spinach, super high in vitamin C. Legumes, seaweeds, as we all love seaweed, yum, yogurt, mushrooms, avocado, bananas, Swiss chard are just some of the foods that are going to help those ligaments. The lack of stability of a ligament makes the joint less stable. So when the joint is less stable and it's not held snug, those meeting of the bones, that's when you're susceptible to injury. It's easy to hurt your knee, hurt your elbow, hurt your shoulder, and so on, your ankle, because the ligament has been stretched beyond its mean. That passive stretching, you must stop it. The activated stretching is something that does a preload and the body is ready for it. So there are sensory cells in every single joint of your body. And your body knows when that ligament and muscle is being pushed beyond its capability, right to its capability, or it still has room. And it tells the brain, okay, you can reach further to hit that ball. But when you don't have the right amount of elasticity and recoil within that ligament, that's when the problems start, and that you can set yourself up for overstretching that ligament, which then down the road, when you go to hit the ball that you should be able to get, you have now an injury because now your joint is not as stable as it was supposed to be. Is that all making sense? If you do have an injury to the ligament or even a tendon, I want you to think of rice, not eating it. Rest, ice, right? Compression, gentle compression, and elevation the injury higher than the height of your heart to help speed recovery. As always, If you have an injury, you go to see a doctor and make sure that everything is copacetic. But until then, eat your kiwis and spinach. This is Pilates Master Nikki, and I'll see you in class. Today in Real Pilates, we're going to talk about muscle and muscle fibers. And while we all know basically what muscles are, let's dive a little deeper. So muscle should make between 30 and 40% of your body's mass. Some people have less, some people have more. We're not talking about fat. Muscles do a lot more things than what you really think. Muscles allow you to chew your food, swallow it, and they do part of that upper tract digestion. Muscles allow you to expand so that you can breathe in and so that you can breathe out. Muscles circulate the blood in your body, your heart. Muscles help maintain your posture. They help stabilize the joints and hold them in place. Your muscles also produce heat. To keep your body thermogenetically at the right temperature, your muscles produce heat with the friction. How much fun is that? There are different kinds of muscle fibers. There's the fast twitch, there's slow twitch, and then there's the 2A that are called intermediate, which is a blend of both. So fast twitch fiber is for sudden burst. It's a stronger contraction, it's forceful, it's short, and that fiber tires easily. It applies a greater force. Okay. The slow twitch is a smaller amount of force generated. It builds up and it's gradual and it goes for a longer distance. It's for endurance, but it doesn't produce the force of the fast twitch. And then there's the intermediate, which is a blend of both. So the muscles are formed by proteins. The proteins are organized into myofibrils, and they contain sagomers, and Z-lines are these two fibers. When they slide into each other, the Z-lines come inward and then they come outward, like two hair combs. So when you make a contraction, the fibers, the myofibral fibers, actually slide into each other. And then on the way out, which is another contraction called eccentric contraction, the fibers come back out. When your muscle is at rest, those fibers need to sit like that so that their hair combs are just barely touching, but they're touching. If you have muscle fibers that are too contracted, they're like this at resting length. And when they're resting, they're here. When you go to use them, they don't have much range to contract. They're not going to exert much power. If your muscles are too stretched out and the Z lines are separated, when you go to contract, it goes and they don't come all the way in and come all the way back out and then come to this length. So you're weaker. So too tight is functionally weak. Too loose is functionally weak. It's Goldilocks. You need to have your muscle resting length. When you're not making a contraction, that muscle fiber needs to be here. And that is where the drama begins. Your eyes and your hands only have fast twitch fiber. Your heart has both. The strongest muscle of the body is the jaw. Per square inch of muscle, it can exert the most force of any other muscle tissue in the body. When you do exercises that biomechanically do not let the muscle come back in a full contract and a full eccentric for a resting length that's ideal, you start to create short muscles on one side, and somewhere where there's a short muscle on the other side, there's a muscle that's too long. And so the disbalances of long and short are always in the same ratio. If you have a muscle that's too short here. It creates a muscle on the other side somewhere that's too long. So the way that you fix that is by doing a movement that within one movement will make this muscle longer as you make that muscle shorter. Because I can't just comb these 3 hairs, right? I have to comb this side of my head and then the other side, unless you put your head back and just comb it with 2 combs. You get what I'm saying? It's ridiculous to think that you can break the body down and compartmentalize your movements, because we're moving meridians all day long. You're turning, you're twisting, you're flexing, you're extending, you're rotating. So your exercises have to be comprehensive, and that's my job. I'm Pilates Master Nikki. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you real soon for another layer of comprehensive muscle, myofil fiber line contractions at Real Pilates. Thanks for watching. Today on Real Pilates, we're going to talk about one of my favorite things in the whole world. We're talking about muscles, but we're talking about passive stretching. Don't do it. What is passive stretching? Passive stretching is when you bring your heel up to your ass, thinking that you're stretching the quads. You're not. Passive stretching is when you put your foot on something and you come forward and you push and you think you're stretching your hamstrings or your low back, but you're not. So let me explain it to you. First of all, muscles are things that have memory. Why do athletes train? Let's look at a golfer. They go out there and they swing a bajillion times. They do the putting, they do the driving. A cyclist, they're out there and they're doing literally thousands of miles a month. A runner, they're out there running hundreds of miles a month. Why? Because they are creating muscle memory. Yes, it falls into repetitive motion. That's a different story. If the athlete is not training correctly. But that muscle memory that they're trying to build up is they're trying to train the muscle to contract and then expand with as much force, using as little fuel as possible so they can go stronger, competitive, longer, and with more control. Whether you're sprinting the bike across the line or trying to hit that little ball and that flag a million miles away in that thing called golf or tennis. Explosive, dynamic. There's tons of sports out there where people train the muscle so that it becomes sophisticated. And how do they train the muscle? By using the muscle and making it contract. Boom. So now that muscle is well educated. When you do a passive stretching, that let's say you push that muscle, there is a reflex called the Golgi reflex that the body for 6, some people for 8 seconds will retain the information. Past that, the information that you've written into that muscle starts to dissolve and become dissipated. And it's like you open the bottle and let all the knowledge run out. And so that muscle is being made functionally stupid. Not only does it deprogram the intelligence that you're trying to give the muscle, it also is dangerous for the joints because the tendons are not designed to stretch. The thing that ends where the muscle and it attached the muscle to the bone, that is not designed to stretch. You don't want to rupture or injure that, and the body cannot hold a static position for more than 6 to 8 seconds. It's counterproductive. So let's say you feel that your hamstrings are tight and you want to make them longer. You need to do a contraction that teaches that muscle that instead of the fibers being short and stuck, that you want those fibers now to be here in your resting length when you're not doing anything, when the muscle is not contracting. So you're going to have to educate that muscle using contractions that gently coax it, and then it will stay at this resting length. People that have done tons of yoga and tons of passive stretching, and I love the meditative part of yoga, but that push and hold and that hot yoga, somebody shoot me so I don't have to look at it. Really, That stretches out the muscle fibers so that the Z lines have a hard time to contract, and that takes longer. It can be adjusted and fixed, but it's more difficult to shorten than it is to lengthen, by all means. And so that passive stretching is not good. It denervates. It takes the nerve endings that are relaying to the brain how much elasticity there is left. Like, okay, you can't reach any further, right? It's telling the body. So the innervation in the joints and in the muscle also become watered down so that the communication from the joint, from the muscle back to the brain is now skewed. It's slowed. It's no longer accurate. And that loss of muscle innervation is what leads to losing fiber of muscle. It actually makes the muscles weaker and smaller and eventually would lead to atrophy. So stretching your muscle deactivates it, unintelligently makes it stupid. It's bad for the joint. It's bad for the tendon. It's not good for the ligament. And it's just overall a waste of your time. I prefer you have a shot of whiskey and sit on the sofa than try to do the passive stretching. In real Pilates, when you do something as basic as laying down with your knees in a bend and contract the stomach, bending the low spine at the belly button, and lift your ass, the pelvic tilt that goes from C-curve to pelvic tilt, just doing that is a fantastic way of lengthening the low back muscles, tightening the abdominal muscles, lengthening the hamstrings, lengthening the quads, strengthening the hamstrings, lengthening the quads, and strengthening the arms and helping the curvature of your neck. If you do it correctly with a pillow under your neck, elbows and shoulders pressing, chin not dipping, just that laying on a mat is so much better than any passive stretching that you can do. So stop bringing your heel to your ass. Start standing and lifting your knee up as you stand and do 10 of these and then straighten and bend the knee if you feel the urge to put length here or just come to class. This is Pilates Master Nikki, and I'll see you real soon for another layer of Real Pilates. Today in Real Pilates, we're going to talk about your iliotibial band, also known as the IT band. So you may have heard of your TFI, which is your tensor fascia latte. No, it's not a latte that you get at the coffee bar. These things are interdigited. So people that are runners, sometimes even cyclists, but more so runners, and even people that are couch potatoes can develop something that is called IT tendinitis or iliotibial band syndrome. And that is an inflammation of the iliotibial band from different reasons. So we're going to get into that. So the top of your hip where your jeans are, right here. In the middle, you have the IT band that attaches right up to the hip bone, and it goes all the way down and it passes the outside of the knee to where the tibia and fibula are. Okay? And this is a band. It's not a ligament, it's more like a tendon. So it's not really designed to expand too much. It's fibrous, it's white, and it's quite strong. So I want you to think of the IT as the ham, okay? Then you have two pieces of bread making the sandwich, the IT band sandwich, right? On one side, you have the tensor fascia latte, which is in the front here. And that TFI just inserts from the top of the hip, halfway, midway down past the butt there. That's where the TFI attaches directly into the IT bone, into IT band. That's the front of the bread, along with one part of your quad muscle, okay? The back slice of the IT sandwich is the gluteus maximus. Just the superficial fibers, not all of it. Oh, you wish it was the whole ass. So there you are. You have that IT band sandwich. So the IT band in itself, when you have inflammation, should not be stretched, but you need to functionally, with contraction, make the muscles that interdigit into the IT band, you need to make them functionally longer, because the IT band starts to make friction on the side of that knee and can lead to really bad knee pain. It can even give you hip and back pain. It can affect the ankle. It can even affect the shoulder, because now you're all off kilter. The IT band is important for stabilizing the hip when you walk, when you run. So when you stand on one leg and pick up one foot, right? My hip didn't rock and roll. Why not? Because I'm leveraging the IT band. Oh, is that familiar? Do we stand on one leg all the time in class? Yeah, baby. We do a lot of one-legged stuff when we work on the machines or when we work in the mat, because we're constantly addressing the muscles that surround your IT band, baby. So if your IT band does get cranky, you do real Pilates, but you also can put gentle ice on there. Never ice on the skin. You wrap it, never for more than 20 minutes. Anti-inflammatories, always check with your doctor before you take pills, right? Are also super, super good to help reduce the inflammation. And electrotherapy, there's TENS units you can buy on Amazon. They're not expensive, and they help heal and reduce the inflammation. There's radio frequency therapy that you can do on there. Massage needs to be gentle, just to stimulate healing. Heat feels good after the ice, of course, but Pilates will definitely help you if you have a tendonitis, and more important, help prevent IT band issues that lead to knee issues, that lead to the road of sadness. This is Pilates Master Nikki, and I'm always happy to see you. And I'll see you soon for another layer of Real Pilates.